What comes to mind when you think of Argentina? Football legends like Messi, the tango, perhaps the scenic beauty of Patagonia. But have you ever thought about Islam in Argentina? Surprising as it may seem, Islam has quietly grown in this vibrant, predominantly Catholic nation. From the first Muslim immigrants seeking refuge centuries ago, to the establishment of grand mosques and a growing number of converts. Let's uncover how a faith that began in the deserts of Arabia now finds its home in the heart of Latin America. To understand the spread of Islam in Argentina, we must first trace its roots back to the early days of Spanish colonization. In the 15th and 16th century, as European powers began exploring the America, Spain was at the height of its global influence. This was also the period when Muslims in Spain faced one of their greatest challenges, the Reconquista. During this time, the Muslim Moors, who had once ruled over much of Spain, were either forced to convert to Christianity, flee, or face persecution under the Spanish Inquisition. Many of these Muslims, known as Moriscos, were secretly practicing their faith and sought refuge in other parts of the world, including the Americas. It's important to note that the first Muslims who set foot in Argentina did so not with the aim of establishing a community, but rather as refugees and migrants seeking freedom from oppression. These early Muslims were primarily part of the Arab Muslim diaspora, though they were far fewer in number than the Christian immigrants who poured into the New World. They didn't leave behind any significant infrastructure for Islam in Argentina, and their influence on the nation's religious landscape was minimal. Yet, their presence was a crucial first step in a story that would unfold over centuries. In these early years, the seeds of Islam in Argentina were sown quietly, almost unseen, but they were there, waiting to sprout, much like the first sparks of any great movement. It would take several centuries before Islam would make a more visible appearance in Argentine society. Fast forward to the late 19th century, a pivotal time in Argentina's history. The country was experiencing an unprecedented wave of immigration, particularly from Europe and the Middle East. This migration was driven by a combination of economic opportunities, political instability, and the search for a better life. It was during this period that large numbers of Arab immigrants, especially from regions like Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine, began arriving in Argentina. Though the majority of these immigrants were Christian Arabs, many were also Muslim. They came seeking new opportunities and escaping the turmoil of the Ottoman Empire, which controlled much of the Middle East at the time. For these early Arab immigrants, adapting to life in Argentina was no easy task. They faced cultural and language barriers and the challenge of maintaining their identity in a predominantly Catholic country. Yet they worked hard to build new lives, and over time, they began forming small communities. These communities weren't necessarily religious at first. They were more about mutual support, sharing food, helping with jobs, and keeping alive the traditions they brought from their homelands. For the Muslim immigrants in particular, keeping their faith alive was a quiet but determined effort. Without mosques or formal Islamic institutions, they would gather in homes for prayers and celebrate key events like Ramadan and Eid in their own circles. Some of the older members of the community taught children about Islamic values and the basics of their religion, passing down the legacy to the next generation. But there was a challenge here. As Muslims settled deeper into Argentine society, many married outside their faith. Their children often grew more influenced by the dominant culture than by their Islamic heritage. The Arabic language started to fade, and with it, some of the deeper connections to Islamic teachings. This assimilation was both a natural process and a significant hurdle for preserving Islamic identity. While this chapter in history might not seem dramatic, it was essential. These early Arab immigrants planted the seeds for Islam in Argentina. Though they were few in number and their faith was often practiced quietly, they paved the way for future generations of Muslims to build a stronger presence in the country. As the calendar turned to the 20th century, Argentina underwent rapid modernization. Cities like Buenos Aires grew into bustling metropolises, and the country's economy flourished. The Arab immigrants who had arrived in the 19th century were now more settled, with many of them establishing successful businesses and becoming part of Argentina's social fabric. For the Muslim community, however, there was still something missing: visibility. Islam remained a personal and private matter, often practiced quietly at home. But by the mid-20th century, things began to change. Argentina's growing openness to diversity and the rising confidence of its Muslim population set the stage for Islam to step out of the shadows. One of the biggest shifts came with the construction of mosques. In 1983, the Tawheed Mosque was built in Buenos Aires, making the first formal Islamic place of worship in the country. Funded by the Iranian Iranian government, this mosque primarily served the Shia Muslim country. For the first time, Muslims in Argentina had a dedicated space for their prayers, celebrations, and community gathering. This was more than just a building. It was a symbol of hope and belonging for a community that had long practiced their faith quietly. 2 years later, in 1985, the Sunni Muslim community followed suit with the construction of Al-Ahmad Mosque, also in Buenos Aires. This mosque, with its distinctive Islamic architecture, featuring a dome and minaret, became a landmark in the city. These places of prayer were a statement. We are here, and we are part of Argentina. These mosques didn't just serve religious purposes. They became centers for education and dialogue. Classes were offered to teach Arabic and Quranic studies, and the mosques provided a platform for Muslims to share their culture and faith with their wider community. For many non-Muslim Argentines, this was their first exposure to Islam, sparking curiosity and sometimes even admiration for the values of the faith. However, challenges remain. Despite these advancements, the Muslim community still faced struggles with identity. Many descendants of the early Arab immigrants had drifted away from their Islamic roots, often due to interfaith marriages or the lack of accessible Islamic education. The establishment of mosques was a step in the right direction, offering a beacon for those seeking to reconnect with their faith. The 1990s were a transformative decade for Muslims in Argentina. By this time, the Muslim community had grown significantly, not just in numbers, but also in confidence. It was during this period that one of the most iconic symbols of Islam in Latin America was built, the King Fahd Islamic Cultural Center. Opened in 1996 in Buenos Aires, the King Fahd Center wasn't just a mosque, it was an entire complex that included schools, a library, a park, and spaces for community events, funded by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This project was a monumental achievement for the Muslim community in Argentina. Its construction marked the beginning of a new era, one where Islam was no longer confined to small, hidden gatherings, but could now be practiced openly and proudly. The King Fahd Center became the heart of Islamic life in Argentina. It was a place where Muslims could come together not just for prayer, but for education, cultural activities, and community building. The library housed a wealth of resources on Islam, making it an invaluable tool for both Muslims and non-Muslims interested in learning about the faith. The schools provided Islamic education to children, ensuring that the next generation could grow up with a strong connection to their roots. For the wider Argentine society, the King Fahd Center was an opportunity to learn about Islam directly from the source. The center frequently hosted interfaith events, inviting people of all backgrounds to engage in dialogue and build bridges of understanding. This was crucial in breaking down stereotypes and misconceptions about Islam, showing it as a religion of peace, compassion, and inclusivity. King Fahd Center wasn't just about the present, it was about securing the future. By providing a space for Islamic education and community activities, it ensured that Muslims have a strong foundation in Argentina for generations to come. It also gave the Muslim community a sense of pride and ownership, showing them that their faith was not only accepted, but celebrated in their adopted homeland. Fast forward to the 21st century, and we arrive at a moment when global events began playing a significant role in shaping perceptions of Islam in Argentina. One of the most surprising and impactful of these events was the 2022 FIFA World Cup, hosted by Qatar. As you know, football is almost a religion in Argentina. It's a passion that unites people across all walks of life. So when Qatar, a Muslim-majority country, hosted the World Cup, it naturally attracted the attention of millions of Argentine football fans. But what made this event unique was the way it showcased Islamic culture and values on a global stage. For many Argentinians, the World Cup in Qatar was their first real exposure to the traditions and practices of Islam. The sight of players praying on the field, fans observing Islamic etiquette, and the overall atmosphere of respect and hospitality left a lasting impression. Through media coverage, documentaries, and even personal experiences shared by fans who traveled to Qatar, a new narrative about Islam began to emerge, one that was far removed from the stereotypes often portrayed in the Western media. This exposure had a ripple effect back in Argentina. People who had never thought about Islam before now found themselves curious about the faith. Some began reading about it, watching videos, or even visiting local mosques to learn more. For a small but growing number of Argentinians, this curiosity turned into something deeper, a desire to embrace Islam. Conversions to Islam in Argentina surged after the World Cup, with many people citing the values of discipline, humility, and community they observed in Qatar as their inspiration. It was a powerful reminder that sometimes global events events can do more to bridge cultural divides than years of dialogue. But the impact didn't stop there. The newfound interest in Islam also encouraged the Muslim community in Argentina to be more open and proactive in sharing their faith. Social media played a huge role, with young Muslims uniting platforms like Instagram and TikTok to share their experiences and teachings, making Islam more accessible and relatable to their peers. Today, the Muslim population in Argentina continues to grow, with an estimated 1 million Muslims across the country. Despite its growth, the Muslim community in Argentina still faces challenges. One of the main concerns is identity preservation. Many of the descendants of the early Arab immigrants have assimilated into Argentine society to such an extent that their Islamic identity has become diluted over time. As a result, there is a disconnect between the older generation of Muslims and the newer converts, many of whom are committed to learning and practicing Islam more deeply. Yet, there is hope. The rise of new Islamic educational initiatives, especially through online platforms and local mosques, is helping to bridge this gap. Converts to Islam, especially younger generations, are playing a crucial role in keeping the faith vibrant and dynamic. Many of these new Muslims are eager to learn and pass on their knowledge to the next generation, creating a renewed sense of religious pride and identity. The future of Islam in Argentina also looks promising due to the country's legal protections for religious freedom. Muslim women, for example, are free to practice their religion openly, wear the hijab, and engage in public life without fear of discrimination. Additionally, interfaith dialogues are taking place more frequently, helping to foster mutual understanding and tolerance between Muslims and their non-Muslim neighbors. The story of Islam in Argentina reminds us that faith knows no borders, and that even in unexpected places, the message of Islam can touch hearts and inspire lives. So, what lessons can we take from this journey? Perhaps it's that understanding and unity can thrive when we open our minds to new perspective. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. May Allah help us all.
ثم الصلاة على النبي محمد